So turbochargers have been in and out of the sport for the past 50 or so years, but what is it that they do and how do they do it? Well, they were brought in by Renault in the mid-70s, and if you remember from the previous video, a couple of videos back, when we were talking about rocket fuel in Formula One, they were trying to squeeze an incredible amount of power out of relatively small 1.5-litre engines, and the turbocharger was a big part of it. Basically, that enhances the power output of the engine and makes them go faster, essentially. So they were brought in and it massively increased the output of the engine, and as I mentioned last time, increased the cost because they were so unreliable, the danger because the cars weren't really capable of dealing with that, and eventually they got banned in the mid to late 80s. So for 25 years, Formula One engines were naturally aspirated. They were the V8s, the V10s, etc., and they sounded incredible. They were relatively simple, but they were really quite fuel inefficient. But in 2014, the turbos came back with the hybrid engines because they were really leaning more into fuel efficiency and sustainability and all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about how they work. Okay, so here's a standard engine down here, and this is the turbo system. So let's talk about it. So these are the exhaust gases coming out of the engine here. Okay, now they're hot and energized, and what happens is they go through a pipe and into a turbine. This energized exhaust rotates the turbine. As you can see, it's separate from the inlet over here. The exhaust gases continue on out the system, and actually in modern F1 cars, which are being banned, they are then fed back into the engine because they use something called an MGUH. I talked about that before. Anyway, those exhaust gases go out, but they're turning this turbine, which turns a shaft, which basically powers a compressor, which sucks fresh air in down this pipe here, and it's relatively hot because that compression heats up the air. It goes into an intercooler and it cools that air back down again. Now, the reason we want to do that is because the density increases and the oxygen is essentially more rich when it goes back into the engine, which creates a bigger bang. Okay, so out in here, as it exits, it rotates the turbine, which spins the compressor, sucks air in, compresses it, gets hot, cools it down in the intercooler, and pumps cool, compressed, oxygenated air into the engine, which creates a bigger bang, and everything just happens like that.